This is my Canon Tac-Pod from the Ambush On Ferrix, which you guys have seen previously to be modified completely to Canon inside and out. And today I'm going to show you guys how to do a handful of these mods so you can have a version of this for yourself. Now before we dive inside, you guys are going to have to open up my previous Ambush On Ferrix tutorial video. If you haven't already done those mods, you won't be able to do the mods you see in front of you. These mods are based on that previous video. So make sure you completed that tutorial and leave that video open because I'm actually going to reference that later for this video. And lastly, I unfortunately don't have an exact parts list for all the pieces that I used for all these mods, but I can safely say that the majority, if not all of them, came from a Hoth ATST. Actually, 2 Hoth ATSTs. I forgot I got 2 of them from my previous mod video on that. It fell off my shelf, so all the pieces were in a big bag and they were all gray, so I decided to use them for this build. But don't worry, that doesn't mean you guys are going to have to gather pieces step by step. I'm still going to have set portions throughout the video where I show you guys the pieces you'll need for the mods. This video is going to have chapters listed down below so you can skip to the different photo parts sections so you can gather all your parts beforehand and then go ahead and build the entire video. And the last thing before we really dive into this tutorial, I know some people are going to be unhappy about it like they may have been with the previous tutorial, but I'm not going to show you guys the exact plates I used on the bottom of the interior space. I know last time when we still had seats up front and seats in the rear, I didn't show you guys the exact tiles I used. I will, however, later in the video give you guys plenty of good angles of this so you can replicate it if you want to, but I'm not going to show you guys an exact tutorial for that. This video is going to cover the completely modified side panels here, the newly built rear door. This will also cover what I did on the wings, the top turret. It'll also cover what I did with the plates on the bottom side of the roof here to make it level with the original set, as well as covering the greebling on this back side. And then of course the Technic structure on the inside that makes the entire interior walkway possible. So I am sorry for a proper tutorial on the bottom plating here, but it is quite simple as just slapping down plates on the bottom. You guys can really use any plates you want, but like I said, I will give you guys a few good angles so you can replicate it if you want to. But that was the last thing to say before we really get into this tutorial. So diving into this ship, let's cover the few mods that don't really need a tutorial because the entire build is something you can see, starting with the wing cannons. Using a bracket that lets you put studs on the side with a 1x1 plate on the bottom and a stud with a bar hole through it, we're going to go ahead and toss a bar through there with one of these short Technic pins for a little bit of a muzzle brake. And then on the underside of the wings, just apply it on this empty stud right here. And then on the rear of the wings, we have another small mod using just 2 pieces. We've got a headlight brick and a cheese wedge. This helps smooth the transition from the engines and the wings, and it's just one of those small details that you don't really notice, but it makes everything come together a little bit better. And then lastly, for the wings and the engines, remove that Technic pin on the bottom side that stops the wings from folding all the way down. Removing that piece allows your wings to fold all the way down, and it gives the Tac-Pod an accurate look to what it looked like when it was docked on the larger Primorlana spacecraft. And then up top with the turret, I wasn't planning on doing a photo by photo tutorial, but I guess we'll just rebuild it together really quickly. Go ahead and gather up this bunch of pieces here. I've already applied some on this 4x4 rounded plate here. And then you can use the barrel from the original turret on the Ambush on Ferrix. I've just changed my clip to a light gray one. I believe the original set comes with a black one. But now take these 1x2s, let's go ahead and slap these in the middle. Choose one side to put your turret on and another side to put this rounded piece on. And with your remaining smooth curved pieces, go ahead and apply that on top for a nice rounded out look for the top of the turret. Now back at our Tac-Pod, simply reapply the turret like you had it on the original set. And speaking of the original set, let me grab a copy because I need you guys to peel off this 1x2 tile on top. I'm going to need these 2 studs to further amp up the greebling on the backside of the ship later. I end up using some of these L-shaped plates to help reinforce some of that rear greebling and close it in with plates on the side, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now heading down from the turret up to the cockpit, we're going to see how I changed up these wedge plates on the side to help close in these gaps that we originally had. Here's the original set on the left side with my modified version on the right, closing up that very ugly gap near the bottom of the cockpit. It's actually quite simple, and this is going to be one part of the video where I'm not going to do a photo by photo tutorial because it's really easy to replicate. If you look closer to these wedge plates on the backside, you can see it a little bit better. Here on this model, we have both 4 stud long wedge plates completely lined up perfectly. Whereas on my model, you can see this inside wedge plate is forward 1 stud with a light gray 1x2 filling the space that's left by it. And then you can see I added in these light gray 1x1 plates because like I explained in my original mod video, this helps the cockpit from sliding back with the new rear interior structure. And once you push forward this inside wedge plate, you're going to have this empty stud on the outside, and as you guys saw, I decided to put one of these rounded tiles on the outside. I think lining up with all these angles here just looks perfect, so I couldn't pass it up, but you can leave it empty if you'd like. And also up front on the cockpit, these plates that are actually connected to the front of the cockpit windscreen. On the left side, you have the original set with the Technic rail pieces on top and the 1x6 on bottom. Whereas on my set, you have the 1x6 on top with the Technic rail pieces on the bottom. So simply take it off and then slap the Technic rail pieces on the bottom. And then in combination with the plates being moved forward, you'll eliminate a large amount of gaps. And then as well on the outside, I know I changed up a lot of these tiles, so if you'd like to replicate that, you can pause here and gather all those pieces to replicate my outside details. But then besides that, that pretty much covers all the small details. Let's dive into the larger mods, such as modifying the entire rear section of the ship and the interior structure. So the best way to prep your mobile Tac-Pod is going to be by peeling off a lot of these outside pieces. You guys can see I'm using a standard one from the original set because disassembling this is going to be a lot closer to what you guys are going to be disassembling after following my previous tutorial. And speaking of that tutorial, go ahead and have it ready, but for now, let's go ahead and peel off our engines and all of our side panels. So as you guys can see, I've gotten everything disassembled. I haven't peeled off the side doors because we don't really need to. And I know that this interior looks inaccurate to what you guys have. Don't worry about this. Just focus on everything else that isn't this. You guys are going to have that nice rear seating area back here. You're not going to have this large structure, so ignore this as well. But the last thing we need to do is peel off the roof. And if you guys followed the previous video, you might be familiar with it, but if you're not, I'll show you how. On these cheese slopes and these wedge pieces on the side, go ahead and just push down on them, and that's going to bring off all these plates here. And once you have all these plates off, you're going to have some Technic pins to remove. But using this piece, go ahead and push it in on the other side to reveal that pin and slide it on out. And then as well, remove the large blue Technic pins that hold onto the engines. Now you can safely remove your roof. Then once you guys have done that, you'll have your interior section that you've modified and your rear seating that you built. You'll just have this large interior structure. Now the easiest way I found to get these pieces out without disassembling the entire ship is by applying pressure in the perfect spots. So here I'm going to put my thumbs on these black Technic pieces right here. And then these fingers on top are going to be pushing down on these large Technic supports inside. Once you do that, you'll have it separate just like that. And if you're lucky, which most of the time it seems to be so, you'll have the entire bottom structure separate from the top relatively cleanly. Moving a few plates back on to make sure everything's in the right spot. I would recommend moving the studs back onto the main ship as well. From here, you'll have your interior structure. You guys won't have this piece in because like we've mentioned many times, you followed that previous tutorial, so this is going to look a little different. But all we need to do is separate the Technic pieces from either side. Now with the Technic structure removed, I actually don't remember if in my previous tutorial this piece is still here, but if you'd like to use it wherever, feel free. You can probably slot it in into any one of these Technic pinholes. But from here, we're actually not done. Go ahead and remove these hinge pieces because we're going to swap them out for clips. Looking at my modified version, you can see I have these clip pieces hanging off by one stud. There's one empty stud underneath them. So I want you guys to pretend like these are clip pieces. Once you find the clip pieces that you guys need, go ahead and apply them like this on the back of these Technic bricks here. Because you've now extended the length of your mobile Tac-Pod, you're going to need a few extra plates on top to level it with the rest of your interior space. First, you'll use a 1x6 and put it on these studs here. I used a dark gray one on my set, as you can see here, but this is a light gray one just for example. And then once you put that down and reattach the bottom to the rest of your mobile Tac-Pod, you're going to replace this layer with a 2x6 going all the way across on both of these studs here. And then once you have that 2x6 down, you can start customizing your interior space on top of that. And I just want to reiterate one more time before we dive all the way into this tutorial, I'm not showing you guys an exact tutorial for the bottom of this here. I'm not going to show you guys how to do all these plates exactly. And for those of you that are unhappy about that, I completely understand, but if you would like to replicate the plates that I've put down, here's a nice bird's eye view where you can see them all clearly. Just make sure you cover up that gap where those large supports used to be, and then you're free to customize the rest of your interior space front and back. And now that we have these clips on the backside, and I quickly touched on the interior space just one more time, it's time to get into the rest of the tutorial, starting with the side panels and the rear door. Alrighty guys, so we've built up our side panels and now our rear door. The last things that we have to do is build up this entire roof section. This section is going to contain the Technic supports that hold up the roof, as well as the plates that I put underneath the big roof bit so it sits as the same level as the original set, as well as the greebling that appears on the back of the ship. Getting my engines off, we'll go ahead and compare a standard Ambush on Ferrix set to my modified version so we know where our starting point is. So here on the right side we have my modified roof section, and then here on the left side we have a standard Ambush on Ferrix set. Now that we have the roof peeled off, we're going to go ahead and start peeling off some of these pieces to get it closer to what it looks like on my version. And keep in mind, the mods that you're doing in this video are built onto the mods from my previous Ambush on Ferrix video. So this red Technic bar isn't actually going to be right here. I believe in my previous video, I put it further in the back. But either way, no matter where that Technic piece is, we're going to have to start peeling off some of these plates to better match that. So using these studs on the side with the 1x2 cheese slope as a landmark, we're going to peel off all the plates that exist beneath that. You can see on the original set that there's 2 levels of plates beneath this area. Whereas on my set, we don't have any more plates underneath, and that's the cutoff. So in order to start, let's go ahead and peel off these 1x4s on the bottom, as well as the 1x2s that are on top. And then from there, remove one of these 1x6s from either side. And then heading towards the back of this roof section, we're going to take off this 2x4 here and the bricks that are on top of it. That'll include this entire little section. And then we'll flip around back up top to remove this smooth 1x2. And now, besides the turret being modified, these 2 sections are exactly the same, and it's time to start building. Alrighty guys, so we have all of our newly modified and newly built portions of the set. Now it's time to assemble it all together. The first bit we're going to put in is actually the Technic structure and the roof. So here we have the newly modified roof with the new greebling and all the new plates on the bottom to make it level with the original vehicle. Now as if you were the pilot of the vehicle, this is going to be your left side support. So go ahead and grab this build here, and we're going to apply it on the bottom side of the roof here. And now we're simply going to put in the support on these studs here. Pressing that all in, flipping it over, you'll have one empty stud on the outside, but don't worry, that's normal. Simply do the same thing with the other side. Make sure you have that empty stud out here on the outside. Then grabbing the main Tac-Pod, fold down the side doors to make it a whole lot easier for maximum finger space. Then, because you guys followed the previous tutorial, you guys are going to have these Technic axle holes open to you on this backside. Simply slide these axles into these axle holes. Once everything's in there, double check that it's all reinforced and stable. Now we're going to apply our side panels. Grabbing the side panels, I recommend leaving the side doors of the vehicle down for this one as well for more finger space. Grab this left side one, and then you're going to put these two Technic pinholes onto these two Technic pins here. It's very similar, if not the exact same way that these side panels apply on the original Ambush on Ferrix set. Once you have those in there, double check that it's firm. And then now you have those side panels on, and let's do the rear door. Now with the rear door, we're simply going to apply the door to these clips that we attached earlier. Folding it up, now it all lines up perfectly, and we just have to attach the engines. And now applying the engines is just like it is on the original set. But be careful when applying it because like I mentioned in the original mod video, this roof is rather fragile compared to the original structure. The trade-off for the Canon interior is that it's not as structurally sound, so putting pressure on the front side and C-clamping down can result in it breaking, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. So when you're applying the engines, be very careful to only apply pressure from the sides and don't clamp down on the top of the vehicle. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and put the engines back on the ship. There they go. And with that, we have a Canon mobile Tac-Pod from the Ambush On Ferrix set. Like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't going to show you exactly how to apply all these plates down on top because now you guys can do that for yourself however you see fit. For those of you that do want to replicate my interior space, I'll go ahead and give you an aerial view of all the plates that I used because you can see them the best from up here. We've got a 1x6 up front, a large 4x4 in the middle with some Technic rail 1x2s on the sides. The only mod I'm going to ask you guys to do is right here. No matter what plate you put in this empty space, please make sure it's a plate with studs. This Technic brick here attaches to the entire structure of the rear craft as well as the roof right here. So using one of these pieces here, putting it on top of the Technic brick and the plate inside helps anchor it to the bottom of the craft ever so slightly. I know it might not seem like much, but trust me, it's going to help when you're playing with this and building with it. It's going to make it a whole lot easier. Of course, make sure you cover up that hole in the middle there. And as well for the Technic 1x2 bricks back here, I recommend anchoring them with another one of these pieces as well. Here's a view of the backside if you guys want to replicate the plates that I used back here. But with that, that pretty much covers the entire Canon tutorial for the mobile Tac-Pod. I know for a few of the very small mods, like some of these wedge plates up front, I didn't show you guys exactly how to do it. I rather just explained it. But it is quite easy to replicate, so I hope it wasn't too difficult for you guys. And I hope the more proper tutorials that I did photo by photo, or frame by frame rather, for the rear section of the ship worked a little bit better. But with that, that pretty much concludes the entire Canon Ambush on Ferrix mobile Tac-Pod tutorial. As I'm still a novice with tutorials, I would really appreciate your guys' feedback on how I did and how easy it was to follow for you. So please drop that feedback down below, as well as any suggestions you have for some future alternate build or mod videos. And make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss out on any future tutorials. I'm of course making a tutorial for my 501st Battle Pack alternate build, the 2023 version, and then as well the ATTE turret that you guys have been requesting. So those videos are on the way, but I'm still going to splice a few normal alternate build or mod videos in between. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace, fellas.